today in Rich in Relationship. We're going to talk about
how to give her what she wants, have what you want, and still feel whole and complete like a man in the process. We're all learning how to be strong leaders again without being domineering. What if the solution isn't about doing more? What if it's about finding out who you really are and expressing it? Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. And today we're talking about how to recover your marriage without selling out your manhood. I'm Rich Heller and I'm your host. And just as I say that, selling out your manhood, that may kind of resonate with you, but it might be something that you haven't really thought about. Selling out your manhood shows up as knowing something shouldn't be a certain way, but not saying it because you don't want to make her unhappy. You don't want to hear it. That isn't just selling out your manhood. That's like selling out your sense of self. Selling out your manhood might look like you have an urge and desire to protect your family in some way, but you don't do it for some reason or another. That would be like, wow, I'm not being true to my inherent need and desire to protect my family. Like isn't that part of being a man, or is it? And that's kind of the question we're going to address in this episode and in the coming episodes. This episode is the kickoff episode for a whole series. And the more you interact, the more you play, the more you contribute, the more juice I can give you in this series. So ping me, respond to this video, email me, hit me up on social media. However you can find me, I want to hear about how you're receiving this. So you've tried everything to keep your marriage intact. You've tried listening more. You've helped out more. You said yes to all of the needs that she's expressed to you with words, and somehow the distance between you grows. Somehow she never seems to be happy. What if the solution isn't about doing more? What if it's about finding out who you really are and expressing it? That's what this episode is about. That is the male dilemma in 2025, and it has been for some time. The truth is that as men, many of us are doing our best to not be the oppressor, to not be in charge, to not be dominant, to not be telling our wives how to live, to not be telling our children what's what. We're doing our best because our moms, our sibs, our partners have told us, hey, that's what's going on at work. That's what's going on at school. That's what's going on at other places. We don't want that to happen here. And so we honor our moms and our partners by doing our best to not be domineering, toxic men. The problem is that we don't know what it means to be men who are strong and centered in themselves, who have a sense of purpose, and who take the lead in their strengths while allowing their partner to take the lead in theirs. We don't know how to strike that balance yet. We're just discovering it. Some of us are better at it than others. But we're all learning. We're all learning how to be strong leaders again without being domineering, without telling people how to live. The next couple of months, Rich in Relationship is all about striking this balance. And I want to make sure there's content here. If you're a woman listening to this, I want to make sure there's content here for you. I want you to start to understand why your man is missing you. And we're going to go into that deeply. Have you ever felt like you're failing as a husband and father despite doing everything that you've been told is the right thing to do? This is the price of losing sight of our core principles as human beings. Forget about as men, right? Anytime we're out of touch with our core principles, the things that tell us what's most important to us, anytime we compromise those, it's like giving up a hand. Suddenly we just don't function as well. And I'm going to argue that for men in particular, but I think this has been going on for women too for a long time. Part of why women are pushing back and have been pushing back for hundreds of years now is this sense of, hey, I need to be true to myself. Now, our society has changed dramatically over the last 100 years in particular. 100 years ago, in 1924, 1925, it's 2025 right now. In 1925, all right, men were going off to war. Men were providing for the most part for their families. Women were cooking and cleaning. In 1925, we had less litigious society, less legal enforcement. The role of men very clearly was to defend and protect and provide. It was crystal clear. There were exceptions, and I'm not saying that's how it should be, but what that meant back then was provide the primary source of income for the household. Protect might mean protect directly or go off overseas to protect the country. Protect might mean fighting off the attentions of a guy that were unwanted by his wife. Protect meant a lot of things. In 1925, if you were a man, you were much more likely to get into a physical alteration than in 2025. In 2025, if you get into a physical alteration, both people go to jail or both people go to court. In 1925, if two people got into a physical alteration, as long as nobody was radically injured, the police would generally look the other way. That was just part of being a man. Part of being a man was sometimes men disagree and they have physical alterations. What it meant to be a man in 1925 was very different than what it means to be a man in 2025. And then the translation, as we realize that women can earn as much as men and provide more than men, as we realize that men can cook and clean, as we realize that men can even be good caregivers to children, sometimes in some ways better caregivers, as we learned these things and the role of men, which in many ways was suited to the genetic predisposition of the male body, changed, we lost how do we be true to the genetic predisposition of the male body. There are physical differences between men and women that are undeniable. Just size, weight, and strength differences that are undeniable. There are functional differences that are undeniable. And the question is, how do we honor the functional differences and the physical differences and still honor the principle that we are equal? How do we honor our differences and our equality? That's what men need to figure out in 2025. All right. We figured out that it isn't what it was in 1925, right? That ain't true today mostly, unless you're in the outskirts of Alaska. That isn't true mostly. So how do we apply that today? And that's what we're going to explore in the coming episodes. And how is that impacting our communication? You're living under the same roof, but emotionally you're worlds apart. How did it come to this? Maybe it was always like that. Maybe emotionally men and women have always been worlds apart. The truth is that the brain that evolves in estrogen, which is the brain of of all genetic women, and probably your wife, is much more attuned to emotions in the room, to body language, to micro expressions. Women have much more awareness of this. So men are at a disadvantage right there. And because women operate at this level, they have an expectation that men operate at this level, and we don't. Our brains that evolve into testosterone, are more linear, less emotionally aware, and more by linear, I mean the thinking of the male brain tends to be contextual in terms of the goal that the man is working towards, and there's a tendency to disregard emotions sometimes. All right. So women have an expectation that we're as emotionally aware as they are, but we're not. Now, that doesn't mean we can't work at it. That doesn't mean we can't get closer to that. And truthfully, over 100 years, all right, women have learned how to work within systems that were designed by a brain that was evolved in testosterone. There are not many systems that were evolved by a brain evolved into estrogen, though they are coming out more and more and becoming more dominant. Talk therapy, for example, is a very estrogen brain activity. Coaching, more testosterone grounded. The truth is that women adapt well to men and male thinking. They're good at being goal-oriented. Men have not had to adapt until recently, and so we're just learning how. And so part of the transition for us is going to be moving from yes men to from being yes men and nice guys to being strong and still sensitive and aware. The distinction I'm calling out there is when we say yes to everything, that's the happy wife, happy life philosophy. Yes, dear. Yes, dear. If she's happy, I'm going to be happy. That's about, I'm going to reduce my marital stress by just going along with her. When we're just nice guys and yes men, we sometimes agree to things that we just know we shouldn't be agreeing to. And we get very frustrated and unhappy when we see the outcome. And we can't say, I told you so, because that's against the nice guy, yes man philosophy. And even worse, women who are listening to this, you know that you don't really want a yes man or a nice guy. Yeah, you want your guy to be nice to you, but you don't want him to say yes to everything. You want him to complement your strengths with his strengths. You want him to say, that just isn't going to work for me. There has to be another way, as opposed to that isn't going to work for me. We're going to do it my way. Right? Women, let's be honest. You're looking for a partner who's willing to say, I don't think that'll work. Let's explore a way to create some synergy here, as opposed to the old way, which was, I'm a man and I'm in charge. That's what you're looking for. Let's be honest that most genetic women who have chosen to embrace their genetic femininity want a man who is not only genetically male, but embraces his genetic masculinity. That means, that might mean that a good deal of the time, you want him to lead sexually, but in a way that's caring and respectful and isn't just about the sex, in a way that honors your femininity, that honors who you are, that honors your need, desire for safety, that it's about you, not them, right? The problem for most of us guys today is when we lead sexually, we lead this way. Hey, baby, I want some. Not going to work today. Really didn't work in 1925 either, by the way. What's going to work is you look beautiful. We haven't been intimate in a while. I'd love to be intimate. But you know what? If you're not up to that, that's okay. I can just appreciate you just the way you are. When you're ready, I'm here for you. It's a gentle lead. It's a gentle lead that allows her to lead also. It allows her to choose. That's about her needs, not just yours. That's what I'm talking about here. When was the last time that you felt like yourself, confident, clear, and fully alive? Think about it. The last time that I felt like myself, confident, clear, and fully alive was the last time that I was working with a married couple that was having a challenge, and I was able to help them find the answers they already had, right? The answers were already in them. And as a man, how that helped me was I was able to empower the man in that relationship. And I showed my understanding and empathy and compassion for his wife. I was able to lean into both sides of myself, masculine and feminine, without abandoning my masculinity. I was able to share, when they allowed me to, any knowledge I had of what worked for other couples. I was able to help them, support them through confident exploration, knowing that they each had their own answers, help them discover those answers in themselves. I feel so alive when I do that. And that's the experience I want to have in every aspect of my life. And if I'm honest, I don't have that in every aspect of my life. I'm working on having that in my marriage. Sometimes I take my marriage for granted, or that's part of the problem for men. We tend to take things for granted. When I approach my marriage with the same awareness, caring, and balance that I approach with the work, my marriage is awesome. Think about it. When was the last time you felt like you were completely on mission, confident, and clear? We want to find that experience and look for ways to express it in every aspect of our life, starting with your marriage. Why starting with your marriage? This is how it works, guys and gals. The first thing we take care of is recharging our own battery, mentally, physically, and spiritually. The next thing is our partnership, because there's synergy in partnership that happens nowhere else. And then after that, it's children and family. And then after that, it's work. We have a tendency as men to think, I've got to provide for my family. And so sometimes work comes first, caring for ourselves second, hanging out with our kids third, and then there's our marriage. Part of being yourself, confident, clear, and fully alive, is prioritizing correctly. And prioritizing correctly is about reconnecting with your sense of purpose and principles and core values. And when you start taking this journey, it's going to reignite not just self-trust, but marital trust, right? In a marriage, trust and safety are primary. As men, we want to embrace our inner warrior, but we don't want to bring our inner warrior into the marriage. The purpose of the inner warrior is to defend ourselves and our family. We have a tendency, since we don't seem to have vehicles to express it externally, to get into fights about who's right and express that inner warrior in the marriage. And you need to get, guys, that when you do that in the marriage, it's very different than when she does it in the marriage. She's got an inner warrior too, but it's the impact on you is different than your impact on her. And we'll talk about that in another episode. We're going to find a balance between emotional strength and vulnerability. We're going to provide without overextending or getting so absorbed in our work that we forget about our family. We're going to end that fight, which is you're never home. You're always working. Well, I'm trying to pay for this house and this car. That's going to come to an end. We're done with that. We're going to protect our family without controlling them. We're going to lead with our partner. And leadership in this instance is going to be more like two horses who are equally yoked. Right? In the old days before we had cars, there were buggies and carriages, and a buggy might be pulled by two horses, and they were yoked together. The yoke was together. They were equally yoked, and they had to work together. If they tried to pull in separate directions, they'd be fighting each other. So marriage is a yoke that we have put on one another. Sometimes in a carriage team, one horse leads and presses harder than the other. Then that horse gets tired and the other one leads and presses. Sometimes in a carriage team, the carriage goes over rough terrain and one horse is prepared for the rough terrain. Sometimes in a carriage team, the other horse, it's raining and muddy. The other horse is a mudder and better at the mud and leads then. That's the kind of marriage we're going to build. Your marriage isn't over. It's waiting for you to step back into your role as a strong, centered partner. Your wife doesn't want you to go away. It seems like she does. She's poking you. She's pushing you. Maybe she's even served you with divorce papers. She's not saying she wants you to go away. What she's saying is, you're not showing up the way I need you to show up. And the way that we respond to that is, oh, don't leave me. I'll do anything. That's not what she's looking for. What she's looking for is for you to show up true to yourself, strong, 100%, and true to your commitment to her as your partner, pulling together. That's what she's looking for. She's not looking for you to say, what do you mean you don't like that? Well, I don't like what you do. That's not what she's looking for. She's looking for you to take it in, listen, see how you can shift and change so that you can continue to work with her in strength and confidence. That's what she's looking for. And in this series, we're going to talk about how to get there from here. We're going to reclaim our sense of masculinity and self, our sense of purpose personally and relationally. We're going to restore marriages. We're going to create thriving partnerships based in joy and prosperity. That's what this is all about. In the next episode, we're going to dive deeper into how we got here. What is this struggle? What is the cultural background for this struggle? So stay tuned. And in the meantime, have an excellent day and an amazing tomorrow.